You're listening to the Sports Investor Podcast with Professor MJ, episode number 28. Today I'll be making predictions about the Divisional round in the NFL. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Sports Investor Podcast, where it's all about smart sports betting. Here is your host, Professor MJ.
Hi everyone, this is Professor MJ speaking from Quebec City in Canada. I hope you are doing well. Last week, all 4 underdogs beat the spread, so since I picked 2 favorites and 2 dogs, I got 2 picks right and 2 picks wrong. This week, we've got another slate of 4 games for the divisional round in the NFL, including some very interesting matchups. The top 2 seeds from each conference are now entering the big dance, so it's time to separate the men from the boys.
Yes! Yes!
Before we do this, let me remind you that I strongly encourage you to look at my sportsbook reviews the next time you wish to open an account with a new bookie. Having many accounts is key to your success because it allows you to shop for the best line, just like you would shop for the best price when buying something. I made a post in my Facebook group a couple of weeks ago to let my members know that I had downgraded Bet TSI and Nitrogen Sports for specific reasons. You can view each bookie's rating and an in-depth review at professormj.com and clicking on Sportsbook Reviews at the top of the page. Okay, so it's now time to focus on my picks for the NFL Divisional Round. Enjoy! Pick number 1, Falcons minus 2.5 points at the Eagles. Here's a very interesting stat about this game. According to Dan Henzus from NFL.com, since 1998, we've seen 10 quarterbacks starting a playoff game with 3 or fewer starts in that regular season. Nick Foles from the Eagles will be the 11th this weekend. Guess what is the combined record of those 10 quarterbacks? 3-7, 2-8? No, the answer is 0-10.
You have got to be kidding.
Wow, that is not reassuring for Eagles fans. Let's talk about Nick Foles a little more. After throwing 4 TD passes in his first start against a weak Giants team, he looked really bad in his next 2 outings. He completed just 47% of his passes, averaged close to 4 yards per attempt, and threw 1 touchdown pass versus 2 interceptions. These 2 contests occurred against the Raiders and the Cowboys, 2 teams that finished near the middle of the pack in terms of points allowed. This week, Foles will be facing a stiffer test against a very underrated Falcons defense, who played great against the high-octane Rams offense last week. Much talk has been made about the Falcons offense not being as explosive as last year, but not enough talk has been made about how improved their defense is. Last year they finished 25th in yards allowed per game, while they rank 9th this season. They allowed an average of 25.4 points per game in 2016 versus only 19.7 this year. That being said, The Eagles' defense is very solid too. They finished 4th, both in terms of yards and points allowed in 2017. Last week, I mentioned that I do not handicap totals, but that I was tempted to take the under in the Buffalo-Jacksonville game because I expected a very low-scoring game, which is what happened with a 10-3 score. This week, I would probably go with the under in the Atlanta-Philadelphia game, as I feel like both teams will struggle to move the ball, especially in a cold weather game and a few showers that are being forecasted as of now. I'm taking the Falcons in this one, even though I'm a little concerned about the health of star receiver Julio Jones. He has been hampered by injuries throughout the year, and this week won't be an exception. He did not practice Wednesday, as he is bothered by an ankle injury, and you could see him limp a little bit during last week's game. He will be needed for Atlanta to win this game. I like the fact that the Falcons gained some valuable playoff experience last year. By the way, the Eagles are the first number 1 seed to open as an underdog in their first playoff game. It's also interesting to note that Matt Ryan was raised in Pennsylvania. Pick number 2, Patriots minus 13.5 points against the Titans. One thing we have learned over the years about the Patriots is you don't want to poke the bear. Don't make them mad and even more motivated for a game. New England had to deal with a controversy about potential dissension among owner Robert Kraft, head coach Bill Belichick, and quarterback Tom Brady. They will want to quiet the critics, and that's not good news for Tennessee. I also feel like the Titans might run out of gas after playing back-to-back games where they basically needed a win to survive. Their comeback in Kansas City last week was great, but deep down inside, they might feel like they've already accomplished something great. In injury news, running back DeMarco Murray has been ruled out of the game, which is not necessarily a huge blow to the Titans, considering how great Derrick Henry has been playing, but having him to keep legs fresh would have been nice. In contrast, the Patriots are likely to welcome back James White and Rex Burkhead in the backfield. With Dion Lewis already playing great, they will be loaded at this position. Surprisingly, New England might need their running backs playing great because Tom Brady's play has been dropping recently. The drop-off between his numbers over its first 12 games of the season versus the last 4 is jaw-dropping. During the first 12 games, he completed 68.5% of his passes, compared to just below 60% the rest of the year. Brady threw 26 TD passes and 4 picks throughout the first 12 contests, while he got 6 TDs and 4 interceptions in his last 4 games. In other words, half of his interceptions this season occurred over the final 4 games. There is a 16-year age difference between Brady and Mariota. Still, according to Dan Hanzus from NFL.com, in 7 previous playoff games since 1970, featuring opposing quarterbacks with an age difference of 13 plus years, the older guy went 6-1. The Patriots have defeated the Titans on 6 straight occasions, with Tennessee coming on top in Foxborough for the last time back in 1993. I'm fully aware that players have changed over time, but I still thought I'd mention it even though that's not a main justification for this pick. I just don't trust the Titans too much. New England finished the year with a plus 162 point differential, which is a lot better than Tennessee's minus 2 point differential. Mariota threw just 13 touchdown passes versus 15 interceptions. Sure, he is great running the ball, but the Patriots are known for smart game planning. And the playoff experience factor plays largely in favor of New England. Pick number 3. Steelers minus 7 points against the Jaguars. Back in week number 5, the Jaguars came to Heinz Field and stunned the crowd with a 30-9 win. A game where Leonard Fournette ran for 181 yards and Ben Roethlisberger threw 5 interceptions and said after the game that he wondered if he still has it. Big Ben had a solid year after this match, and the team went on to win 11 of its final 12 games, the only loss being a heartbreaker against New England, a game they could have easily won. There's no doubt the Jaguars' defense is great. They finished second in points allowed, yards allowed, and total sacks. Guess which team finished first in terms of sacks? That's right, the Steelers. Pittsburgh's defense did a nice job too. But their offense is much more trustworthy, not only in terms of how well they performed, but also with respect to playoff experience. The Jaguars' offense is just too one-dimensional in my opinion. They rely on their running game too much, which makes game planning much easier for opposing teams. Jacksonville scored 10 points last week against Buffalo and 10 points in their final regular season game at Tennessee. But 7 of those points happened on a fumble return, so the offense has only generated 13 points over the past couple of games. Blake Bortles has been really horrible. There is no other way to put it. In case you are wondering, in the earlier meeting in Pittsburgh, Bortles went 8 for 14 for 95 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. It was Fournette and the defense that did all the damage. All-Pro wide receiver Antonio Brown is set to return after missing 2 games. He practiced in full this week. Whether he is 100% or not remains to be seen though. But at the very least, he should draw a lot of attention and could make the running game better. One more thing to consider is the impact of Ryan Shazier. After suffering a scary spinal injury, he showed up at practice this week and he will probably be a source of inspiration for his teammates. Pick number 4. Vikings minus 5 points against the Saints. It almost feels like this game will decide who moves on to the Super Bowl in the NFC because the number 6 seed Falcons and the Eagles minus Carson Wentz appear like weaker teams. Minnesota will try to become the first team ever to play the Super Bowl at home. Yee-hoo! The Saints had the number 2 offense, while the Vikings had the number 1 defense. We have witnessed 7 occurrences of a top 2 offense facing a top 2 defense since 1990. The strong defense shows a 6-1 record. This is the only game where I have observed a fairly clear reverse line move. The line opened at 3.5 and moved to 5 despite more than 60% of spread and moneyline bets going on New Orleans. In other words, sharp money is backing the Vikings. The Vikings beat the Saints 29-19 at home in the season opener. But both teams underwent significant changes since that game in terms of player personnel. At that time, Sam Bradford was the Vikings' starting quarterback, and Dalvin Cook was their starting running back. Both went down to injuries and were replaced by Case Keenum and a mix of Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray. As for the Saints, they got rid of ex-Viking Adrian Peterson, a decision that turned out great, as the duo of Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram had a stellar season. Minnesota is pretty healthy, while New Orleans is battered, which is a source of concern for them, because depth could be an important factor when facing such a strong opponent. Wow, can you believe I'm actually picking all favorites this week? As a sports investor that tends to pick more underdogs than favorites, even I am surprised by this phenomenon. So that concludes today's show. I'm really excited to watch this weekend's games. I'm very grateful that you guys are there every week to listen to my podcast, and please remember to take a look at my sportsbook reviews and clicking my affiliate links the next time you decide to do business with a new bookmaker. So this is Professor MJ. Thanks again for your attention. I'll be there next week to make picks about the conference championship games. See ya!